Hey everyone, welcome to drawing class. This week you'll be drawing hands for a drawing assignment. And so, of course, some of you have your sketchbooks, and so you can draw your hands individually in the sketchbook. I think I want 4 of them at least. And when you're drawing the hand, the trick will be just taking a photograph of it this way, really. You know, just sitting here and drawing your hand in the sketchbook, all right? 1 hand per page, that's simple. Those of you that don't have a sketchbook, maybe you have some drawing paper with you. I've started some hands on some drawing paper here using my traditional materials. I've got my white eraser. I have a piece of vine charcoal and a stick of a Conte crayon, all right? And I'm drawing hands out here. And then there's hands here in various stages right now. The first one I drew is right here, then followed by this one back here, which is his fist, which is sort of half finished, not quite finished yet. And then this third one I'm working on right now. Now the third one I'm working on is going to show you sort of the beginning stages. I'll put another one over here actually too, as well. So the first stage of the hand is simply just drawing your shape out. Look for the overall shape. That's what's most important. And I'm talking about from ends of fingers right here to there. We've got a shape right here going up about like that. And then we've got another shape coming down here in this area, all right? So it's like this is what I'm looking at, the outline of the entire hand right here, okay? And then when you curve down around the hand like so, bring the wrist out, all right? Just as one mass form. Never sit there and try to draw out any individual fingers just yet, all right? And then you're gonna start breaking it down to smaller shapes, all right? And then this is where your individual fingers will start to come into play, all right? So I've got this here. Most importantly, while you're drawing your hand is to keep it steady, or keep it in the same position. All right, this is going to be challenging because there's a lot of foreshortening that happens in fingers and the way they're positioned. This finger right here is coming right out at me, so I'm going to draw the underside of that finger first, right in here, and then the same with this finger down here. It's coming down a little bit downward, but still sort of at me as I'm drawing it. So I'm drawing the underside, and then there's the top of that finger, there's the back, the very back of that finger right there, all right? Those two are suggested, and that's 1, 2, 3, and the overlapping finger number 4, the pinky finger here, coming down like that, curving up, all right? So that's something that will be a bit of a challenge for you, getting down the foreshortening approach to it. Just remember, if these fingers are coming out towards you in perspective, these spaces back here will be a little bit smaller, all right? And that will look more natural. Okay. And then here's some folds under here. I'm starting to notice those, and then that can almost create a line, all right, as you're building out your fingers in this way, all right? So you can see how it's developing, and it's getting nicer, and it's getting more and more detailed overall, all right? I'm not starting or focusing on one particular finger. I'm building out gradually from the mass. With the vine charcoal, you can see I'm using, so if I do make any mistakes, I can just sort of wipe it out. And I can start erasing some of those earlier lines that I had just created that I don't need anymore, those guidelines. Those guidelines are very important though in the beginning of your hand, because they keep everything aligned together, all right? They keep it as one solid. All right, this one over here is reaching out in this direction. When you're drawing hands like this in an overall composition on the paper, what you want to try to do, if you want to try to make it more natural, you want to figure out the size of your hands and make the hands that are in the background smaller and the hands that are in the foreground larger. A lot of times I won't necessarily start in the foreground and work my way to the background. I'll just sort of place hands in there, but it is a little bit better if you do it that way, if you start with the foreground and work your way through the background. to different hands. So this one is another one I was working on. The same thing happens here. You can see that I drew an overall shape. I even drew a connector line across these knuckles here, and then there's another shadow in there as well. That finger right there is sort of going away from me, all right? So I'm aware of that as I'm drawing it, and I'm building it and making it smaller as it goes back within the space, all right? And I've got my thumb over here. Thumb is usually the only finger that sort of separates from the grouping, and then these over here are aligned in a group. So one thing to look at is where the knuckles are, all right, and where they're aligned, and make sure that they're aligned correctly. All right, so there's a knuckle, and then my last finger is right here. This one was a mistake before, so I'm going to take that area out. Just like that. Okay. All right. Once I get to that far, I usually break in with my black Conte crayon like I did with this hand to start developing details, because I'm fairly sure about what's going to happen next, you know, within this picture. So I'll sit there and sort of draw out the thumbnail, for example. Build that out. And why would I sit there and keep doing it with the Vine charcoal? Because Conte crayon is my finishing material. All right, Vine charcoal sort of erases too easily when you wipe over it. So I'm going over that line that I want to keep with the Conte and taking out some of that Vine charcoal. And you can see the details are starting to reveal themselves in the drawing nicely. Clean that edge up. If your eraser gets too dirty, remember, have a scrap piece of wood or a piece of sandpaper if you happen to have one, or something that you're able to clean your eraser off while you're working, if you're using charcoal. All right. If you're having to use pencil or something like that, just remember, try to make your hands you know, shade up a lot. You'll be having to make a lot more mark. I did recognize while we still had a class together that people were finding it hard to go back to pencil after working with charcoal. So charcoal is very nice. It actually, you can just simply brush a tone in there in 1 second. If I got a shadow in here, just knocking it right in there at the side of my charcoal. All right. All right. The last thing I wanted to show you was how to reproduce hands quickly. So you see I've got a composition of hands here, but all this area of the paper over here is pretty empty, right? Well, let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 hands made. If I carefully fold the paper over without putting a crease in the center of it, or along this edge, I can take something like a wooden spoon or a metal spoon, apply some light pressure, or just some pressure in general, over my hand drawing area. I can kind of see them through this paper, which is nice because I have a light, I have a lamp here at my desk, and it helps you be able to see better. When I do that with the back of the paper with a wooden spoon, I've begun transferring other hands over here to the other side of my paper. You can see that. So that's less hands I have to draw. And these hands are actually my opposite hand. They're the same actual hand, but you know, because you transfer them over and flip them, they end up being opposite. So then I can sort of continue with developing these lines and bringing out this. And that's how you can get multiple hands in a composition, you know, to make an even more interesting drawing. And since these hands are fairly well done, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to show you in a PowerPoint presentation next week about the figure. I'm going to show you a drawing I did of hands, a really massive drawing. It's like 4 feet by 6 feet in size, and you'll see that there's thousands of hands within the picture, or at least hundreds of hands. And within those hands, if you look closely, you'll notice that some of the hands are just a lot of the hands are the same hand, and this is one way that I've actually did that, secretly reproduced many hands in this sort of format. So you can see how this sort of works, and then it gives you more to even practice on with toning and so forth. Alrighty, so that's your assignment for the week. Good luck, everyone. See you later.